Well, this is December the 8th, Safe Harbor Day in the election cycle. So, this is sort of our update on what's been happening in the political sector here. I hope everybody enjoyed my Pearl Harbor special yesterday, or yeah, I guess it was yesterday. Uh, but back to this situation here. So, we've had some developments. Yesterday, we had the courts in both Georgia and Michigan reject Sidney Powell's lawsuits at the district level, and I hear today she's going to appeal to the appellate level. So and then we have, let's see here, we've got another lawsuit I think was filed with the Trump campaign in Georgia, which was, I guess it was rejected because the fee wasn't paid and some paperwork issues, and they said they were going to refile it. So I assume that's happened today. I don't know for sure on that, but I think so. There's another lawsuit in Wisconsin, which went to the Supreme Court and then got kicked back down to the lower court. And I suspect there's a bunch of other ones. And of course, most notable today is the Attorney General of Texas filed a lawsuit straight to the Supreme Court, in which he challenges what 4 states have done, I guess, in disrupting the process. So it looks like the idea here, if I understand this right, with Safe Harbor is to keep a lot of disputes out there on Safe Harbor Day so that you can't say all disputes have been resolved. And so it's still in dispute, I guess, at this point, if I understand that right. I mean, there's some legal technicalities there. Probably need a lawyer to fully bring in on that. So, okay, so that's kind of where we are. And then, of course, the big one, of course, is the Sean Parnell related lawsuit in Pennsylvania, which has gone to the Supreme Court, and supposedly the state has responded this morning to Justice Alito's requirement for their response. So as far as I know, as of this time, I've seen no other information. It's now under consideration by the Supreme Court. And remember, that one was one which would basically potentially declare the entire process of mail-in ballots in Pennsylvania unconstitutional. So all this is in full scale. At the same time, on the standard process thing, I think all attorney generals secretaries of state, I apologize there, have certified the election for Biden at 306 electoral votes. So that's where we stand right now. The machinery of blind process is going forward to install Biden, and at the same time, there's a lot of challenges that are pending, I guess, as the day ends. So it's still in dispute in several states. I think that's the whole idea here, which leaves the courts the entree to do something if they want to, or not do anything if they don't want to. And we don't know what they're going to want to do at this point. Generally speaking, everybody makes a big deal in the press about how these Trump appeals have been all dismissed or whatever. They haven't all been dismissed, but basically, though, almost all of them are on process. I think the Nevada judge, who was Obama appointee, I think it was, did hear some evidence and still rejected the case. But basically, this has not been an evidence-based rejection. It's really been more along the lines of process. I mean, you even have things like, which go sort of along the line I think I mentioned before, but sort of like if you filed a lawsuit before the election, you don't have standing because there's no damage has been done yet. After the election, it's too late. So when do you file it? See what I mean? So essentially, it's the way the courts duck the issue, and I think a lot of the courts really don't want to get too much into this. Part of the problem is, I think at this point, I think that it's breaking down into 2 basic theories of what's going on here. One is a theory which is that this is due to the voting machine and its software flipping votes and various mischievous acts like that, which would suggest a very large-scale type of fraud. And the other possibility, which I'm more inclined to, is what I call the old-fashioned way, or basically ineligible voters voting. And I think that's more likely to be what's happened in these really tight races in states like Arizona and Georgia, Wisconsin, and potentially, maybe to a lesser degree, in Pennsylvania and in Michigan. However, in those states, there seems to be more evidence of more wider scale fraud going on. There's a lot of allegations, and unfortunately, there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of people investigating it in a careful way. I mean, really, if trucks loaded with 100,000 or more ballots were actually being shipped across state lines, that sounds like some real malfeasance. Similarly, if in Georgia there really were computer printed ballots that were pristine and on an unfolded paper, that suggests something was going awry there too. That was a bit, more than just the issue of what I call business as usual. That is to say, again, people that really voting twice, out of state voters, and so forth. So, okay, that's kind of it. Another thing I looked at the other day, which I'm kind of looking at the global picture. It starts off, with this 51.4 something Biden vote and 47 point something or other Trump vote, and the mass popular vote, which isn't the determinant, but it is an interesting question of what happened in this election, particularly when you consider that the minority vote was stronger for Trump than we've seen previously. We estimate that Trump got 50% more African American vote than previously, and that he probably got several percent more. I'm trying to figure exactly what it is, maybe 6% more Latino vote than he got in the previous election. So if we go through those kind of calculations, I made a rough calculation here. Now, look at this way. On the other hand, let's assume to begin with that essentially we start off with the Trump vote being like it was in 2016, around 46%, and the Democrat vote for Biden is the same as Hillary's, around 48%. Then you have about 6% that were voting for other candidates. 1.5% of that still voted for the fringe, libertarian and green candidates. Okay, so it still gives you a little over 4%, up to 4.5%, who voted. Okay, here, and let's assume that essentially all those people voted for Biden. Excuse me. Then that brings you up to close to his 51% number, okay? And maybe a few of those people did actually gravitate to Trump. But then you have another thing going on. If you go out and you make the decision to say, but let's take that African American vote and that Latino vote that's moving toward Trump, you get about another 4% or so that should be going for Trump. Effectively, that is to say, it flips votes. If you take 2% away from Biden, and then you give that 2% to Trump, that's a 4% shift in the relationship, which therefore brings them up to almost parity. So then the question we're left with is, well, that's not what actually came out in the tabulated votes that our illustrious secretaries of state in all these states have certified. So where did the extra votes come from? If you aren't going to assume some massive fraud, and the possibility is that Trump actually fell off in the white vote percentage. And that would have to be something like about 5% of the total white vote. Now, how this could have occurred is potentially the following. You could look at it this way. You have, first of all, 4 years of people that passed away, and perhaps a few more because of the coronavirus, although it's not statistically significant, but it's there. And then, so you have 4 years of natural passing away and 4 years of young people in the 18 to 22 group, who came into the voter group and registered to vote. And then you have people who hadn't been voting in the previous election who did turn out. And the assumption is that among the white vote in that group, there was a substantial movement toward Biden. Okay? And if you make all those assumptions, then you can get to something like what's being tabulated if you look at, let's say, Real Clear Politics and look at the popular vote. And that could explain kind of how this ended up. So then what we're looking at when we get to the states, there are these anomalies, though, that you have, where the Biden people win states big in just the states they need and just the counties in those states that they need to win it in. And that's where I think we begin to look at the fraud issue being more prevalent, I think. So I think and there's enough data in many states to support the idea that fraudulent votes were the difference in those states. So That's kind of the way I see it right now. Now, the problem is that, again, hardly any of these courts are looking at the evidence. And the evidence is so complicated, it's probably very difficult for them to do much on it either. And that, which again gets back to the point of election security is at a pinnacle in this whole process. If you want to stop voter fraud, you have to do it before the votes are cast, because once the votes are separated from the envelopes on the write-in ballots, or once somebody somehow has gotten through the into in-person voting and somehow got through the ID system in some way and got to vote when they shouldn't have, there you have a situation where it's going to be very hard to do much about it to ever track it all down. So I do notice on Georgia, I will point out though that if we have these pristine ballots that are in the boxes of ballots, it's interesting that none of the efforts that were put to 3 recounts, but they never actually directly searched for these particular ballots. And those could be very much ones that could be identified as fraudulent. And I think that's really very disappointing. I think the behavior of the executive leadership of the state of Georgia is absolutely appalling. I mean, I think it's politically suicidal for them, actually. I mean, I would really suspect that the governor and the secretary of state there are going to face some serious primary challenges in the 2022 election because of their behavior here. You've got a big, the voting base, the Trump voter is also pretty much the voter base of the Republican primary in many ways. And I think that's a very annoyed group of people. And all it takes is a candidate with an opportunity to exploit this, to run against them, and they're in real trouble. I think they've been incredibly foolish, and even in the most cynical political sense. I mean, it's one thing if we expect them to really do something about it, which we do, but at least they should pretend like they cared, and they aren't even doing that. And I think that is, I think that's going to be their downfall. So what are we looking for? Stacey Abrams as governor of Georgia in 2023? A real possibility considering this fiasco. I hope it doesn't happen. Well, at any rate, I think that's about it for today. I just wanted to say that, unfortunately, for those that have subscribed because of being on Parler, for some reason my account got deleted. So that's why you don't see me there anymore. So sorry about that. I am talking to user support by email, and so far I've got any real response back other than, we're busy and we'll get to you sometime. So at any rate, so if you like these videos, give me a like. That helps out. Subscribe. If you want to see them, click on the bell and you'll get notified that way. And as I understand it. So that's all good. And that will be it for today.